Brad did it. Brad touched it last.
See, 'cause I always have to look at, but they kind of been the last one, same places.
My pregnant brain, I just walk in, I don't pay attention.
You know what that's,
Good thunder.
well, I was wondering if, how do you get good out of that?
I did.
Dusty. How are you?
Good. How are you guys doing?
All dressed up, are you used to seeing you in your football?
I saw that in the paper this morning.
Or your work? I say you're all dressed up yet, I'm used to seeing
Oh,
you yet.
ride your
From the
motorcycle?
summertime when you come here to practice.
course.
Nice jacket. Yeah.
Hey.
Hi, Jim.
How are ya?
Good, how about you?
I can't get my son out of this.
How's the basement coming along, Sean? You're working good. You get those things. Bright side is. Yeah. Let me know how that goes.
Sorry?
See how goes the battle.
I lose
Lose.
all the time. End of the semester, so.
Oh, busy, busy.
Oh, crazy. Is that who I am?
Oh.
Had my heater on all day.
So Jillian, counting down the days, how close are we?
Yes, I'm counting down the weeks.
How many weeks?
Well, 5 to 6.
So you're in your 32nd or 33rd week?
I'm in the 34th week, but she said, oh, I went there today. Could probably go
That's nice, isn't it?
Well, right now, anytime would be
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah,
right?
and that's what I said.
Yeah.
I've got some
Good
stuff.
to go.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah, right?
It's
Exactly.
like, yeah, sure.
Oh,
Yeah, they measured it today. It's 26.
Okay.
Stop growing.
I know. And then the fact that I
Anybody-
grow a half a pound.
Does anyone remember if Hannah said anything about not coming?
I don't.
She walked in at 6:05 or something, so I don't know.
That's a nice size.
I think all three of our
Two
boys were
stalls and then three.
9 something.
Mine and each one got just a little bit bigger.
Well, it's nice and deep.
Except,
Yeah,
well,
Ben was the
well,
biggest.
actually, Deb was.
Or is it 40 feet wide?
Sure.
Yeah, the first one was the smallest one.
Oh, okay.
Chris was the black.
Okay.
There you go.
Had the biggest.
That's
feet.
just.
Amy Schumer didn't fit him. They said they go to meet their feet. Well, sure enough, he did.
Is it a steel building?
Okay, it is 6:30, so we'll call the meeting to order. Roll call
Jack May,
here.
Jillian Cousins.
Here.
Johanna Marzinski, here. Sean Coombs.
Here.
Connie Johns.
Here.
Jim Grabowska.
I'm here.
All right, introduction of visitors, starting over here.
I'm Lexi Braun. Gabiano. Cassie Mink.
John Lynch.
Amanda Crops. Nicole Rulin. Bobby Heller. Randy Raker. Danny Hahn. Cindy Guam, City Council. Katie Nicolai. Cynthia. Mark North.
Welcome. Okay, the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda.
So move.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2, positive recognition.
We have several items to bring to your attention this evening. First of all, Cyclones of the Month for this month are Connor Van Erdwick, Kayla Bose, Aria Hala, Cheyenne Westfall, Caleb Sorensen, and Ryan Bennett. Also, thank you to the National Honor Society members and Mrs. Hoscheit for putting together last Monday's Veterans Day program. Also, we have some congratulations going out to some extracurricular recognition, or recipients rather, and that would, first one, congratulations to the Spartan football team for earning the academic all-state gold team status in Class 2A. And in order to get that award, they have to have a GPA of 3.26 or higher, and that's the 5th consecutive year that St. Clair's earned that award. Also, congratulations to Dawson DeVito. He's a member of the football team and a Loyola student. He was named Mid-Southeast Red Lineman of the Year. This is the 4th year in a row that the Cyclones or the Spartans program has had a player honored as MVP. There was Noah Schroon last year, Grant Nagel in 2017, and Michael Anderson in 2016 was the Defensive Player of the Year. And then also congratulations to the following Spartans: Ben Ellingsworth, Matthew Helgett, Dawson DeVito, and Thomas Leffler for being named to the Mankato All-City team. One other item that I'd like to just mention is congratulations to the cast and crew and directors of the play that was held this week in the history of dating. Other than that, I'll turn it over to Kelly for donations.
Okay, we have a bunch. We received $8,976.96 from the athletic backers, and that was for boys basketball, girls basketball, wrestling, and softball parents' night cakes. For the baseball tarp and weights, hurdles, cart, tent, and bag for the track and field, a batting cage, senior plaques, and state track t-shirts. And then we received another $400 from the backers, and that was for the homecoming float prizes for the past couple years. That went to the class of 2024, 2021, and 2020. We received $250 from the First Lutheran Church of Waldorf, and that will go toward the playground restoration project. We received $3,530 from the Immaculate Conception Catholic Church, and that was for their 2019-20 snack cart donation. And we received $1,500 from Stephanie Leffler toward the football sideline jackets. So thank you for all of those.
Great. It's a lot of hard-earned dollars that are being contributed. Number 3, PTO report.
So we just have a few things. PTO provided an Olive Garden meal and a Hy-Vee smoked pork meal on conference nights. And then we have started communication with the PE department to look at options for the roller skates. We've been talking about that for a long time. And then our next meeting is January 6th. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Any unfinished business?
There is none.
Okay. Open forum for agenda items. We do have one request to speak on an agenda item from Danny Vaughn. Oh, since it is, Community Ed Advisory Council is on our agenda.
Yep.
So,
Talk about it now.
yeah,
Back up there.
sure. The one at the end is, in general, things that are not necessarily on our agenda.
Okay, well, I just had a couple questions for the advisory council for the community ed. I just wanted to know, like, what the qualifications and, like, the certain things you were looking for when you were picking those 7 people that I saw in the packet, and then, like, who was in charge of selecting those people, if those are questions I can ask.
Sure. I think that's all in the bylaws, and that was, Brad, would you want to speak to that?
Sure. we looked at a variety of, so we could get a cross-section of our parents from all levels of our school. So we looked at high school, elementary, we looked at elementary younger. We had some qualifications of somebody that had some early childhood background. So we wanted some of that on board. We have a city council member, or Mr. Moore as the mayor, to represent the city. We have a member that's not have any kids in our system any longer, so she's kind of the community rep on that part. I think that pretty much, we tried not to, looked at grade levels, so we weren't overloading one grade over the other, so it didn't look like it was one class that would have the bulk of the discussion. So that's kind of where it came down to. And then ultimately, I gave a recommendation with all the names, along with Dustin and Tom, and then we will present that tonight to the board of directors for approval.
We had a unique situation with that too, in that we had more people apply than we had approved openings on the advisory council, so, which is kind of a nice problem to have, that level of interest. So the priority at that point was, as Brad mentioned, getting a cross-section of people, knowing that it is community ed and not just a particular area within that umbrella. So Brad sent that out to Dusty and I to look at, and I thought it looked pretty good to me based on the cross-section that we had. So that's kind of the process. Unless you have more questions, that's kind of where it
No, I
went.
was just kind of
Yep.
curious of, why you think you need it.
Yep, that was kind of how it boiled down. There was a lot of people that were well qualified, but it was the kind of the demographic that we didn't want to overload it too much in one area, so.
So then from that list, if we had, like, say, someone on here decides they no longer want to do it, would you be able to go back to that list of previous volunteers then and see?
Well,
if
I think
was
there is a process identified in our bylaws for a vacancy,
vacancy?
but I don't remember offhand what
I don't
what
remember
it is,
either, that's
so.
what I was asking, so, but
But yes, I mean, I would guess that
that would be,
those are the first people that we'd probably contact.
and see if they're still
see if there
interested,
is
so that if
anybody
someone's
interested
name was
there.
on that list, they might have a chance that if someone decides to do it.
Okay, anything further?
No, that was it.
Okay.
Thanks, Anna.
Thank you.
Okay, number 6, new business. None. All right. The consent agenda items, is there a motion to approve, or does anyone want to focus on anything there first?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, the MSEA contract.
Received word last Thursday or Friday from their union rep that the MSEA group had voted. And again, the MSEA group, they voted and they approved our tentative agreement. So the next step is presenting it to the board for your review, and in your board packet is a summary of the contract highlights, changes, and there weren't a ton of things that were updated. We settled this contract in 2 meetings, which was the fastest that we've settled it in the past, and I want to thank Jim, Jillian, and Hannah for taking part. It was a good negotiations. The MSEA group, just as a refresher, represents our cooks, custodians, classroom paraprofessionals, and office support staff.
I would make a motion to approve the MSEA contract changes for 2019-2021 as presented.
Second. Now, by approving the changes, we're moving to approve the contract.
Correct.
All right, the motion has been made and seconded to approve the contract changes and ultimately the contract in general. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 8, appointments.
We have for your consideration the application for Ian Marzinski as the custodian position. If you remember, as part of our budget setting process this last spring, and then related discussions with John Dahlman and Del Plank from Hilliard as they're going through the analysis of our staffing levels, that we were authorized to hire a 5th position, and after going through a few fits and starts at the beginning of the school year here, we're happy to offer the position to Ian Marzinski, a recent St. Clair High School graduate. And Ian will be working consistent with the recommendations that John and Del help us with in terms of where we need the most help so we get the biggest bang for our continuing buck. So Ian did a nice job in his interview, and he's started with the understanding that his continued employment is contingent upon the board's approval of his hiring this evening. So far, he's done a great job for us.
Well, let's not make him wait any longer.
Okay.
I'll move to approve the appointment.
I will second it.
Ms. Connie? All right, the motion has been made and seconded to approve the appointment of Ian Marzinski as presented. Any further discussion?
I'll abstain from voting.
Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carries. Number 9, extracurricular appointments.
We have 3 individuals to appoint to extracurricular positions. They're all in either the boys or the girls basketball program. Austin Nagel, a St. Clair High School graduate, for a position of assistant boys basketball coach. Austin has his application materials in the work packet. And also junior high girls coaches, Abby Milinkovic, is that how?
Milinkovic.
And then Ashley Chitwood. And we're happy to have all 3 as part of our program. And I think that fills out the roster of coaches for.
We have 2 junior high boys, but their application didn't get to her on time to go to the packet, so.
Sounds good.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve the appointments of Austin Nagel, Abby Milankovic, and Ashley Chitwood. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Winter sports schedule of coaches.
In your packet is a list of coaches for the various winter athletic activities, including cheerleading, wrestling, girls basketball coaches, and boys basketball coaches. And they're presented and put together by Mr. O'Donnell. I appreciate the hard work that everybody has put in, especially Brad, in making sure we have a full lineup of coaches to work with our kids. So that list is there, available for your review and consideration.
I'd move approval.
Second.
Okay, the motion has been made and seconded to approve the schedule of winter sports coaches as presented. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Community Education Advisory Council.
Included in your packet is a list of administrative recommendations for membership on the St. Clair Community Education Council. They include Jason Hammond, Katie Kleiner, Sarah Mills, Sarah Quast, Beth Freilich, Linda Cruz, and Marvin Moore. And then Brad and I are ex officio members, along with a student council executive board member to be named at a future date.
Okay, and we touched on that already during open forum a little bit about some background. Does anybody have any
sorry, I didn't hear, was it?
How many applicants?
11.
I would make a motion to approve the representatives of Finney Education Advisory Council as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded to approve the representatives as presented. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 12, first reading policies that will be in the consent agenda next month. So that's your heads up on that stuff. Number 13, elementary principals report.
There are 4 items listed that you can certainly take a look at in your report. The one that I would like to pull out is the experience that our 6th graders had in their government class. And mainly I want to pull that out because it had some public recognition, but it had nothing to do with what our 6th graders did there. And so,
Bill Jeremy.
just so you all know exactly how this all fit together. So part of the 6th grade Minnesota State curriculum for social studies talks about the state government and how it works. And so Mr. Noye put together a fantastic experience for the kids where they researched some topics that are really happening in the world, along with some that are just near and dear to 11 and 12-year-old hearts. And they created bills that they could present to their classmates. And then, so they had all of that background. Senator Nick Frentz came in and visited with them and kind of presented what he does as a senator, and they were able to have a Q&A session with him. And then he gave them a little bit of background on a bill that they would actually be arguing and voting on once they went to the state capitol. And so then for their culminating experience, they went to the state capitol just like 6th graders have been doing in Minnesota since the dawn of time. But we had the added experience of not just being able to see the building itself, but the kids actually got to go to the House floor and they got to sit in the chairs, and Representative Munson walked them through the process of this is how you present a bill, and this is how you are given permission to speak. And when you speak, you have to give this preamble first before you can say anything to anyone else. And so it was very, very official, and the kids got to argue. I think the bill was whether or not there should be a law making it unlawful for children over the age of 12 to trick or treat, because it was around Halloween. And so they argued the pros and cons. They had to get up and they had to speak into the microphone just like an actual representative would. They proposed an amendment to that bill, so the final bill that they voted on actually upped that age to 16. And then they got to vote where they got to push the buttons and they got to see their votes showing up on the board and everything.
Wow,
So
that's cool.
it really was an incredible experience, and we do thank Representative Munson for doing that for us, and we hope that it will continue to do it in the future, because quite honestly, I think the teachers were the only ones that even noticed what he was wearing and had any clue what it might imply. So I promise that none of them will need therapy or anything like that. But, it was a wonderful experience, and we thank both Senator Frentz and Representative Munson for the roles that they played in that.
So the fact that they had a more experience than typical was credit to anyone in particular?
Last year was the first year that we were able to do that, and it was just kind of an impromptu. Originally, the kids were just scheduled to meet Representative Munson, and kind of at the last minute, he said, "Hey, do you guys want to come to the House floor and check this out?" And so they got to sit there and they, had a little lesson. But this year, he and Mr. Noye actually collaborated ahead of time and were much more purposeful in the experience that the students were going to have when they were there.
Very good.
So I was
on Jeremy's page?
Okay, anything else for the regarding the elementary principal report? Number 14, high school principals report.
I think the big one that I want to make sure everyone's aware of is Toys for Tots Drive is kicking off. An annual thing that our student body does. This year they set the goal at 1,600 toys. I don't know if they have ever had a year that they didn't reach their goal. Usually they exceed it by a tremendous amount. This is just one of those events that our kids really step up and show their true colors and show how much they do care about the community, the area, and understand how much they have compared to what other people may not have. And that is probably one of the things that I'm most proud about our kids during this time of year.
How many toys are you donating this year?
Yeah, my personal. I always wait till the end and then see where they're at and afterwarding.
Of course.
I usually don't know, so which is a good thing. So be proud of our kids. They do some tremendous things around here that sometimes we as adults don't recognize or appreciate as much as we probably should.
Very good. Anything else regarding the principal's report? Is there any interesting consequence or ramifications of more students qualifying for blended than average?
No, I just think, we have students that, as freshmen, sophomores, or maybe C students or D students, and you dangle that carrot out there in front of them, and all of a sudden they become A, B students, get their homework done, get their assignments in, do better on tests, and, this year's another example of that. It's 83% that qualified at the end of the quarter. And some of those kids that didn't, it may just simply be a family decision. They qualified but didn't have the transportation, or a parent didn't want them out or whatever. So actually that number is higher than the 83, but I don't know, again, our junior, senior classes typically step up, and this is the highest percentage that we've had, I think, since we put it into effect.
Is it GPA the determiner?
GPA, they have to maintain a 3.0. They cannot have any grade lower than a C minus. So you could have a 3, higher than a 3.0 and get a D plus and would not be eligible. Good behavior standing, and at any time, we, the district, administration, or a staff member can say, you know what, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, not turning in assignments or something, and we can pull the blended at any time. And the kids are fantastic. I had students in my office today. Hey, do we have blended next week because it's a short week? Yep. What's the rule? Oh, yeah, it's only on days that are shortened that we don't get blended. So the kids are very responsible and conscientious about asking, making sure that they're doing the right things, and we don't have a lot of issues.
Very good. Number 15, superintendent's report.
I have 4 items that I included in the agenda, and since I had submitted those to Katie for inclusion in the packet, there's a couple updates to give you. First of all, on Friday of this past week, John and Dell from Hilliard were here and met with the administrative staff and our head custodian, Paul Knutson, and started going through the work assignment areas and started doing some preliminary planning for the task or cleaning cards. They are scheduled to come back again December 4th and meet with the whole department to kind of roll out to all the custodial staff and interested parties how we envision this going down. They did provide a preliminary map of cleaning areas to Paul, and he was gonna go through, and one of the things that we talked about is their final product is only as good as the information they get when they're developing it. So there might be some areas that were incomplete that we'll have to tweak a little bit, but I would say that overall it's pretty complete at this point, but there's a few minor tweaks that probably need to be made. And then the other topic was, last Friday I did receive a draft of our resubmit, it hasn't been submitted yet, but new Phase 1 environmental assessment that the MPCA required that we do over because it was more than a couple years old as part of the process for giving us the green light to go ahead with our plans for the new property. So I just received that on Friday and I'm going through it. It's a lengthy document and getting that back to Paul to make, or Mark at Braun Intertech to make sure that that's accurate, and then he'll be able to resubmit the whole thing as part of our response plan to the MPCA. So, other than that, if there's any questions on anything, I would be happy to answer them.
Regarding the fourth bullet point about health insurance, could you elaborate on kind of what you're pointing out when you say, despite being our highest premium increase, it averages only 5.2%? So, kind of good news, bad news, or what do you?
Well, it's kind of good news, in a strange sort of way. It's, if you would ask other employee groups if 5.2 was, if that was a good increase or a bad, I think most school districts would be ecstatic that they only had a 5.2%. So my point in poorly stating it the way I did was to underscore the fact that even though this is the highest, it's only 5.2% in the highest. We've had some years where it's been less than 1% renewal rate, and keep in mind that generally the medical inflation rate is hovering around that 10% mark, but there's schools that, you know, if they go the traditional route for securing their insurance in the second year of the renewal, they often see renewal rates that are into the 20% mark. So that can be a huge hit on both the district and the employees in trying to manage that cost. That's something that's really difficult to control, but the PEEP plan has been really, really good for our district. And so having a 5.2%, we'll take that any day over what it could be. So we'll take it less than a percent too, every once in a while.
5 is better than 10.
Yeah, yeah, or 25.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any board reports?
I was to the city council meeting, and they finally have all the final paperwork submitted, waiting for the final FEMA approval, and then they'll be able to take the treatment plant and the flood wall out of the city limits, so it won't no longer be classified as in the floodplain. So that'll save the city about $10,000 a year that they will not have to pay in flood insurance on that part of the property. So the city's worked really hard, and a lot of paperwork and resubmitting over and over again, which we're all familiar with, getting things squared away. But all of the floods protection things are in place, and it sounds like we're in good shape, that if we would have high waters again, the catastrophes would be very minimal compared to what they were a few years ago. So kudos to the city for staying on that and getting the job done. And the fire prevention day, they firefighters had over 96 of our students down to the fire hall, exploring the equipment and getting rides back. And Bill said kids were enthusiastic as always, and that was really fun. So, and the donuts with Santa and Mrs. Claus are set for December 14th. Anything else I should mention, Cindy? No? Okay.
Cindy, did the city prior to this, were they required to have flood insurance through?
After the last flood.
And so after the last one, they were, but you know, was there a claim made after the second flood?
They didn't have, Lewis County was not, mapped for floodplain. So
Oh.
they couldn't get us up until the last flood. And
Okay.
because it was mapped and then we had the flood, that's how they got us into the flood insurance. In order to follow through and do a mediation and all of that, we had to get the flood insurance for them to even consider working with us. So, but now that we've got the berm, rebuilt and the pillars on the berm, they've done all the samples and everything, and we sent everything in so that they can, rezone and get the treatment plant out of the floodplain in
Oh,
the
okay.
mapping that's coming out right now. And then FEMA will let us get rid of all of that, okay?
Thank you.
At the athletic factors. Looking at new ideas for fundraising, since we're not doing the state fair, that we lose like $9,000 a year in funds for fundraising, so we're looking at new ideas for that. And also, I don't know if it's January or February, when we do the new directors, we're in need of 7 people. So pass the word if anybody's interested, we're looking for 7 directors.
Can the current directors resubmit?
Yes.
But we were already short.
But we're already short. So, need a lot of people and ideas for fundraising to make up that $9,000 that we're no longer receiving.
Okay. Anyone else? Haven't been, no? All right, well, I guess we're already at time where we talk about the next meeting is December 23rd. And we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to adjourn. All in favor say aye.
Isn't there an open forum at the end?
Oh, I'm sorry. How did I miss that? Oh, I scribbled over
Too
it
many
so much
notes.
with the, yeah, it's all busy here. I'm sorry. Open forum for things in general that are not on the, our agenda.
Okay. We wanna talk about a potential trip for students.
Thank you.
We are looking, as a science department in offering students the opportunity to go to Iceland in March of 2021. In speaking with Carrie Altamari in Spanish, I know that she's only got, I think, 7 kids going to Costa Rica this summer. And I know that who she's partnered with in the past for her trips has all changed, and she's not looking at potentially going again to Costa Rica till 2023. So we made sure when we kind of put this idea out there, we weren't conflicting and offering things at the same time as the Spanish department. We chose Iceland because it has a lot to offer as far as ecology, biology, earth science. It's kind of a unique place in that students can experience a lot of different things, and I think it may be attractive to students maybe who aren't taking a lot of Spanish, and maybe Spanish isn't their thing, maybe science is
Not in
their-
Iceland, it isn't.
Maybe science is their thing, and so, I guess hoping to offer something different, maybe for students, to experience.
Yeah, so we just thought it would be nice to have like an actual science field trip that isn't just for like the college biology, which is the only science related field trip at the moment, that goes out of Mankato. And we chose Iceland again because it covers all of the different subject areas that you would take when you're in 10 through 12. So we are opening up for 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And it covers current standards, but even when the standards change in 2023, those will still be covered by this age group. And that'll bring into a lot of the climate change, which is a big push in our new standards that are coming up.
About 98% of Iceland is actually run on clean energy, and the kids will be exposed to some climate change conversations. And I really think, or I guess our goal is that when students return from this trip, that they kind of are teachers, that, I mean, they're the upcoming generation. Unfortunately, we're not. And it's going to fall, a lot of it's going to fall on them to be educated and hopefully make smart, wise decisions for the future of our planet. And so I think if we can expose them to a place where they are using alternative forms of energy, climate change is a part of what's going on there, that maybe it will spark interest in some of those kids to, you know, be a voice of change in that respect. And just travel in general, I think, getting our students out of St. Clair. I know I've gone to Costa Rica before when Sarah Lynch was still here, and I can tell you that that trip that I went on was probably one of the most enjoyable trips I've ever been on, including trips I've gone on with my own family. It was a unique opportunity, I think, to spend time with students outside of the classroom. They see you in a different setting, you see them. And even to this date, all those students that I went on that trip with, we still reminisce and talk about all of the unique experiences we had on that. And I think when we took students, we had, the majority of our students had never been on a plane and had never been out of the country. And so to give our kids that opportunity to experience something that maybe they wouldn't otherwise, I think is a pretty neat thing.
I took a lot of field trips as a student myself when I was in high school, and those are like the most authentic experiences that actually pushed me into the field of science teaching. That I was just like, from 7th grade on, I was sold. I want to be a science teacher because I want to do things like this with my students.
I guess questions that you guys
So this is informational for the board tonight, and then you have a parent meeting and
Yeah, to see if there's any interest.
Interest?
Yeah.
and
The interest
and
level.
they'll
we have
know
a
that-
minimum set at 12, and there
Okay.
really isn't a maximum.
So the board doesn't need to approve it yet because we don't know if we're even going to have enough kids interested?
We have 48
I think there's 48
families coming to
Oh,
the informational
okay.
meeting. So,
That's tomorrow night.
and that's tomorrow night, and then we'll have an idea of who's serious about wanting to come.
And then are you thinking like next month,
Yeah.
request a formal approval from the board?
Sure,
Yes.
we can
Okay.
certainly come back, and if he needs to come back. And
So have costs been established?
the cost, I believe, is $4,200.
And lots of learning outcomes. Are
There
these
are a
going to
lot
be
of learning
delivered by the two of you? Or is this going to be in concert with somebody
It's a
there?
mixture.
Mixture.
It's a mixture of what we'll be bringing, and a lot of the stuff is covered by what we'll be visiting and the experiences. There will be guides on the tour with us.
I notice you have Icelandic culture and history. It's not in the learning outcomes, but how are you going to address that?
They do get to experience some of the culture. They will be exposed to learning some of the history of the Vikings, local, obviously, culture in that area.
Yeah.
I believe
We're going
that-
to the Vikings Museum as part of it, and so we'll get to learn a little bit of that history. And, we can talk about how our team is the Vikings, which was named because of our Scandinavian American, we're like the center hub for it, and we have the highest percentage of Scandinavian Americans living here.
Mm-hmm.
So will you be planning on doing lots of fundraising, or will the families be pretty much covering the
I would
costs
say
of their
probably
own?
families pretty
Fundraising
much
too.
footing the bill.
And that will help at least get us into that smaller group size too. So we know that all 48 people coming tomorrow won't be necessarily going with us,
Sure.
but
And
gives us time to plan.
Everything is included in that cost, obviously, except for their passport, and lunch is not included, but any excursions, airfare, hotels, breakfast, dinner, anything else is covered in that cost.
I'm sure it's in front of me. How many days
8 days.
and nights?
What?
Eight nights
Nights.
also?
I think it said 8 days, so
It was, yeah, I
it
have.
said 8 days, it says 8 days.
I think I need to volunteer as a chaperone. got dibs,
Might have to
all right?
get in
Okay.
line.
Is there any prerequisites for the kids as far as grades or academically, like standards that you're going to put into?
Probably not.
We wanted to leave it open, kind of, to give an opportunity to a wider range of kids to be able to attend.
Because I don't know, I mean, I think you may not be the best student in the classroom, but that doesn't mean that that student
Wouldn't benefit.
wouldn't benefit from that.
Right.
And who knows, maybe they'll experience something that will spark their interest, like you were saying, and encourage them to go into a field.
Well, hopefully you won't be
Here it
like
comes.
the Vikings and get close but not quite there.
Okay, we made it.
I was just waiting for something from Jack.
And we've both been out of the country, like I said, I took an EF trip when I was in high school myself between my junior and senior, so I traveled with EF before.
Neither one of you been to Iceland?
Nope, I've gone with Sarah Lynch to Costa Rica, and I've been on many other trips with my family out of the country as well, so I think we're both experienced travelers.
And another thing you might have said here, and this will expose my poor listening, but what time of year?
It'll be March.
And is that strategic for there, or just what works out with? the school
Kind of,
year?
hopefully it'll coincide with our spring break. And then, they have 2 different trips, and in order to, do this particular trip,
It's in the spring.
it's in the spring, you can't go in the summer, because we had talked about the summer, and some of the things that you can see and do are not accessible through their tour company during the summer months. So I think April is kind of that cutoff.
Yeah.
The climate is fairly nice, isn't it?
Probably about
Yeah,
35, 40 degrees.
it's a little bit like Minnesota in the spring, so it's bipolar. You're gonna wear layers and take things off if needed.
It's not tropical, let's just
No.
say.
Around in March, April, they should see snow melting in that time period, so we might have days where we're wearing sweaters.
Sometimes you hear that it's sort of the revert, you think of Greenland and Iceland, and that Iceland is actually more green.
Mhm.
Greenland is more
Yes.
ice-like. That's what I've heard.
And becoming greener all the time.
All right, thanks for that presentation. That's the heads up for us.
Yeah, good luck tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that little glitch there and missing that, but now I think we're at the point.
Somebody else got
Any
it.
students have anything you wanna question or ask about that we talked about?
Who signs my paper to get out of here?
Yeah. Any of us can sign your paper.
John said he wants to stay another half hour.
Yeah.
You was hoping it was one of the long
Well,
meetings,
you're
John, instead of one of the short ones,
That's-
don't?
it's open forum. Stall.
Get Jack to keep,
Yeah.
making puns or something about the, keep it here for a while.
Well,
They're pretty good.
That was my main pun. It's for people that like to speak on something. It's open forum. Get it?
My head, sorry.
All right. I think we had a motion in second to
Yeah.
adjourn, but that was, let's do it again.
I'll do it again.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries.
Thanks, everybody.
7:15.
Next one is open as well, right?